What's good, creators? My name is Devaney, the creative whore, but y'all can call me Dev for short. So I'm currently a student at the Los Angeles Film School working on my BA in digital film. Welcome to my channel where I teach you what I learned in school so your ass ain't gotta go. The goal is to cover everything you need to know about cinematography in order from A to Z. So, you're interested in becoming a cinematographer, or maybe you just want to shoot better videos. You got this new camera and you like, where do I start with this thing? Exposure. That's where you start. It's the basis of a good looking video and basic technical camera knowledge. So today's video is all about the exposure triangle. Three of the most important features on any camera are going to be shutter speed, ISO, and aperture. All three of which adjust the exposure, aka you guessed it, the exposure triangle. So let's jump right into the first leg, which is shutter speed. All this is, in simplest terms, is how long the light hits the sensor in your camera. This is measured in seconds, such as 1/48th of a second, 1/60th of a second, and even 1/200th of a second. The higher the number, the faster the shutter speed. The lower the number, the slower the shutter speed. So, how does that affect the exposure? Faster shutter speed results in less light coming through the sensor and shorter exposure, while the opposite is for slower shutter speed. More light coming through the sensor and longer exposure. In addition to exposure, shutter speed also affects motion blur. Slow shutter speed equals more motion blur, and fast shutter speed equals less motion blur. You're probably thinking like, Dev, what should I set my shutter speed to? A good baseline is the 180-degree shutter rule, which states, to mimic motion the same way the human eye does in real life, shutter speed should be set to about double the frame rate. So, the standard frame rate for pretty much everything that you see is 24 frames per second, which would equate to a shutter speed of 1/48th of a second. Now, just because this is a rule doesn't mean you can't break it to achieve different looks and even different effects, but that we'll address in a later video later on down the line. The next leg of our triangle is aperture. Aperture is how much light passes through our lens. So, think of your eye. When there's too much light, your pupil gets smaller to keep some of that light out so that we can see. And when there's low light, your pupil expands to let more light in so you can see. That's exactly how aperture works. You want more light, the aperture needs to be wider. You want less light, the aperture needs to be smaller. We measure this on our lenses with f-stops. The lower the f-stop, the more light, a brighter image. The higher the f-stop, the less light, a darker image. Now, in addition to exposure, the aperture also affects depth of field, which is how much of the frame is in focus. Smaller aperture equals less in focus, and wider aperture equals more in focus. The final leg of the triangle is ISO. ISO determines how sensitive the sensor is in the camera to the light. It's pretty straightforward in the sense that the higher the ISO, the more sensitive the sensor is to the light, resulting in a brighter image. And the lower the ISO, the less sensitive the sensor is to the light, resulting in a darker image. In addition to exposure, the ISO also affects the digital noise in the image or video. Digital noise is essentially how grainy your image will be. Higher ISO equals more digital noise. Lower ISO equals less digital noise. High ISO will make it difficult to make color corrections in post-production, so you want to stray away from that. Not all digital noise is bad, but too much of it degrades the quality of your image. All right, creatives, so that's the basis of the exposure triangle. I try to make this knowledge digestible and not just overloaded with shit you don't need to know right now. With that being said, I hope you learned something new, and don't overthink it, just shoot it, because the world needs to see your art. And that's a wrap.